because I honestly believe that God wanted more. When you said I do, he really has a huge purpose, and he believes in marriage so much because we are reflecting something to a watching world. He did not want us just to be roommates.
It was actually our marriage that pushed me back to God.
I can't explain it. You have to come see it for yourself.
Go now. Do it. It is awesome.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Please stand and join us while we worship.
Bow at his feet. He has done great things. See what our Savior has done. See how his love overcomes. He has done great things. He has done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Been faithful through every storm. You'll be faithful forevermore. You have done great things, and I know you will do it again. For your promise is yes and amen. You will do great things. God, you do great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. You've done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you've conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. You have done great things.
There we go. That was partial. It was just us. It was us. How is everybody? Good? Thank you so much for being here. My name's Paul. It's our vision here that we connect to God and connect to others. And there's a little card right here if this is your first time with us, right in front of you. If you would fill that out. We're not going to stalk you. We're not going to follow you to work, see what's in your fridge or any of that kind of stuff. We just want to connect with you. And if you fill this out and you turn it in at guest services, anybody wearing orangish pink shirt, they would love to be here for you today and exchange that gift, that card for an awesome gift. It's a coffee cup and a bunch of other stuff that we want to give you today, church swag. All right. If you haven't connected to our app yet, there's directions behind me on how to do that. You can connect to all types of things here at Crossroads, sermon notes. You can give. You can connect to events and sign up for stuff. So please, please, please do that. We have lots of events going on here at Crossroads. We just want to show you a little highlight video of what we have going on. We'll see you later.
Hey everybody, I'm Chad. Welcome to Crossroads. Thank you for spending part of your weekend with us, especially if this is your first time. Here's the scoop on some exciting events happening at Crossroads.
Hey Timothy, do you know I like almost as much as soccer? No, what? Snacks from the concession stand.
You can help upward by donating items for our concession stand. Here's a list of needed items. Can I have some?
Fall is here, and CSM is kicking it off with a Fiesta Flare. This event is October 20th from 5 to 7 p.m. at Casa de Mezcua. We want all families and students to come out and enjoy dinner, bring a pumpkin to carve, sit around the fire, roast s'mores, and play games. Please let us know if you're coming by signing up on the Crossroads app.
Are you new to Crossroads? Come to our starting point lunch Sunday, October 20th, immediately following the second service. This is an opportunity for you and your family to join us for a free lunch to get to know more about Crossroads, who we are, and what we believe. If you already attended our starting point orientation and are ready to learn more about membership, we invite you to join the team at the same time. Childcare will be provided. To sign up, email office@crossroads.cc.
This October, we have a great opportunity for everyone at Crossroads to be for our neighbors. Leading up to the third annual Feed the Need event in Newport News Public Schools on November 26th, we're asking everyone to fill a bag for a family in need. Add an item each day to the bag to complete the list. Pick up your Feed the Need countdown list and let's work together to fill the bags with food. You can also help by donating $25 for a turkey. Please fill out an envelope and mark it turkey or select turkey from the drop-down on the app.
Do you love technology? Do you enjoy video projects or want to learn more about videography? Have you caught my mistakes on past announcement videos, like misspellings and wrong dates? Have you noticed grammatical errors in any of these scripts? Do you want to update the look or design of our current videos? We're looking for 2 to 3 volunteers to serve on the creative team who have a passion for video work or who want to serve at Crossroads while learning more about videography. If you are interested, contact me in person or by email, kim.n.little@gmail.com.
Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please visit guest services or check out the website.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Crossroads. Glad you're here with us this morning, and we're in a series called God of the Underdogs. Have you enjoyed that series? Okay. Have you enjoyed that series? All right, good. I love underdog stories, and I ran into one this week that I just absolutely loved, and I wanted to share it with you. I don't know how many of you play golf. Does anybody play golf in the room? Anybody good at golf in the room? I guess that's a different question, right? If you actually play or if you're good at it, it's a whole different story. But anyway, I like to play every once in a while. In fact, the last time I played, I was so angry that I told my wife, put my golf clubs in the attic. I was like, I'm never playing again. Like, I'm done. I cannot spend that much money to be that angry. You know what I'm talking about? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So anyway, I like playing on a team because I can get a few hits in, and then I can depend on other people to help me with the other stuff when I mess up, because I can hit one straight and then one 500 feet in the woods. So it depends on how I swing, I guess. But anyway, I ran into this story. I like to watch golf, and one of the guys I like to watch is a guy named Rory McIlroy. You ever watch him? Really great guy, good golfer. And I ran into this story this week about his dad. I don't know if you've heard this before, but when he was 15 years old, his dad placed a bet on him. His dad went, literally, he went to a European broker, and he bet $341 when his son was 15, $341 that his son would win the British Open by the time he was 25, so 10 years down the road. $341 he put down. What are the odds that his son, at the age of 15, just an underdog, kind of high school student playing golf, that he would actually win the British Open in the next 10 years? Well, the betting broker thought the odds were 500 to 1. And so imagine this dad, right, betting on his son and watching him play at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18, all the way up to the age of 25. And he's in the British Open, and he's leading on the 18th hole as he comes around for that last hole. And if you know the story, he actually won that championship. He won the British Open in 2014. At the age of 25, his last opportunity to do that. Here's a tweet that this is the broker company that put this out that said, "Congratulations, Rory. We're paying out $180,000 to Rory's dad and pals. There will be some party at the McIlroys tonight." Isn't that an incredible story? Wow. And so, I'm not here to kind of talk about the morals or merits of gambling. That's not really the point of the story. The point of the story is that here's a dad that sees his son, believes in his son, and bets on his son. A really incredible story. It intrigues me. It really does. And so we're in this series called God of the Underdogs. We talked about some different excuses, all coming out of the book, God of the Underdogs, some different excuses. One, I'm not qualified. That was the first week. The second week, my label limits me. Last week, my past is too bad. And this week, the excuse, if you want to write it down in your notes or take notes on the app, the excuse is this: my chances are slim. My chances are slim. Maybe you've felt that way before. Maybe you feel like you've had the odds stacked against you. Maybe you look into your future and it's uncertain, and you've been paralyzed with the fear of that uncertain future. Maybe you've decided to do nothing just because the odds are stacked against you and the chances are too slim. Can I spit some truth on you for a moment? Is that okay? Write these down. There's some truth here. God believes in you, and he bets on you. You have a dad who believes in you. You have a dad who bets on you. We live in a world where people are saying to us, God is pulling away. God is pulling away. No, he's not. The evidence is strong that God still pursues people. That God, in fact, he's pursuing you even now, some of you in the room. He loves you and he pursues you. Many in the world will say that God is disappointed in you. That God wants to condemn you for the things that you've done. And the truth is that he loves you and that he gave his life for you. He went all out and gave his life for you and died on a cross for you, and tells us that if we're in Christ Jesus, there's no condemnation for us. Your Father bets on you, and your Father loves you, and your Father wants to use you in his kingdom. Isn't that amazing that we have a dad who believes in us enough that he wants to use us for his kingdom work? He designed you to be a player in his kingdom. He loves you. He bets on you. He's a God of the underdogs. Here's another truth, just a long sentence that I'm going to read. So take this in. God has sovereign control over any and all circumstances and works in and through them for his kingdom purposes and your ultimate good. You guys awake? God has sovereign control over any and all circumstances and works in and through them for his kingdom purposes and your ultimate good. And that's why I love the story of Esther in the Bible. I love her story. If you haven't read the story of Esther, you need to read it. You need to go home this afternoon. You need to take some time this week. It's 10 chapters. It's about 7 pages. It'll take you 20, 25 minutes to read it, and it is so worth the read. It's a quick read. It's a powerful story, an underdog story, and we're going to talk about that today. So I believe if she was here, I'm going to have a seat. I believe if she was here, I think she would say to us, my chances were slim, but my dad bet on me and believed in me. And he would say, I think she would turn to us and say, and you have a God who believes in you. You have a God who believes in you and a God who bets on you. So let's step inside her story. Okay, I'm going to share an incredible story with you of Esther. We're going to move along pretty quick. You think you guys can handle it? You're going to hang in there with me? I hope that you enjoy the story as much as I have as well. I guess the best place to start is at the beginning. So in the land of Susa, there was a king named King Xerxes. Okay, that's a fun word to say, Xerxes. You should say it just for the sake of saying it. Xerxes, go ahead, say it. Now, he was the king, and the Jewish people weren't really in a very great place at the moment. They were dispersed all over the place. In fact, at least at this time, King Xerxes was ruling over at least 127 provinces, it says, and the Jews were just kind of scattered among all of those different provinces, and they had a foreign king. King Xerxes was a foreign king, and if you read about him, he was a pretty good guy. He wasn't a horrible king. He made some weird leadership decisions. He had some leadership challenges along the way, but overall, he seemed like he was a pretty good king. And one of the first things we read in the book of Esther is that he throws a party. It was a 180-day party. He invited the nobles. He invited the military officials. He invited the princes. He invited all the people that were in high places all across of the provinces that he was ruling over. He invited them all. For 180 days, he displayed his wealth to them. 180 days, just here's all that I own. Here's all the wealth that I carry. He just kind of displayed and all of that wealth to them over 180 days. And then he threw another party. It was a banquet. It was a 7-day banquet. And at this banquet, he invited everyone who wanted to come, from the least to the greatest. Everyone was invited to the palace for this banquet. And it lasted 7 days. If you read about it in the book of Esther, you see it was a beautifully described banquet. There were marble pillars. There was an incredible garden. There were linens and marble and mother of pearl and other kinds of costly stones. The Bible tells us in Esther that there were couches of gold. Couches made out of gold. Anybody ever sit on a couch made out of gold before? Couches made out of gold. That there was an open bar that everybody could drink from the least to the greatest as much as they wanted, and they drank out of gold goblets. So here's this open bar, and again, guests were allowed to drink without any restriction. So you can kind of imagine what was going on at this banquet, right? So about halfway through the banquet, the king has decided in a wasted moment, he's wasted, and he's decided that he wants to invite his queen, Vashti, to come to the party and to be, let's just say, halftime entertainment for the party. To do a dance for him and for all of the people that he was trying to impress. And as the queen learns of his request, she denies it. She says, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be the halftime show for you and your buddies. It's not in my interest to do that. I'm not going to do it. And this was a very brave thing for her to do. And because of it, she lost her position as the queen. She was dismissed from the palace. She was banned from the palace. She would no longer be a part of the nobility of this nation of Susa. She was not involved in that at all. She was gone. And so here is the moment where a new queen is going to be found. And so there was a kind of a word that was sent out to all of the provinces that they were looking for a new queen, and they sent all of the provinces sent their based on the most superficial reasons that you can imagine, they sent their women, their young ladies, to stand before the king. And before they did that, they were placed in a 12-month beauty school. The Bible says that they spent time with just kind of being spent over 12 months with perfumes and cosmetics and all of those things, and they were being prepared for this moment when they would stand before the king. A day when, I hope that things are different today, but a day when men were measured by their wealth and women were measured by their beauty, or as I heard somebody say once before, men by the size of their wallet and women by the size of their dress. And that's kind of what was happening in this moment. It was a beauty pageant for the king. And that was the opportunity that he was going to choose his next queen. So we meet Esther now. And there's 4 lessons that we learn from her through her story. I hope that you'll write some of these down. Incredible story. We're going to walk through it right now as we meet Esther. Number one of the first lessons we learn from Esther is that what may seem to be little things are really big things in God's eyes. We learn this lesson in Esther that what may seem to be little things are really big things in the eyes of God. It says in Esther chapter 2, verse 7, Mordecai, that's one of the characters in this story as well, Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This young woman, who was also known as, what's her name? Esther, had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother died. Esther's future was grim. We can just say that. She was an underdog. The first thing we learned about her is that she hides her nationality from the king's people. She was a Jew. Her name was Hadassah. She changed her name. That's a Hebrew name, and she changed her name to Esther, which is a Persian name, which actually means hidden. She hid her nationality. She hid her background, and she hid her Jewish identity so that she would not be recognized as a Jew. Why would she do that? Well, it was mostly due to prejudice. She was a Jew. She was a slave woman. She was an underdog. Beyond that, we learn of Esther that she was an orphan. And in the context of the day she lived, we could easily say that her chances were slim that she would have a fulfilled life, yet alone be considered or become a queen. And the verses tell us that Mordecai, a cousin, steps in and adopts this orphan child as his very own. He adopts her and he treats her like she is his very own daughter. I believe Esther would look at Mordecai and say, what you thought was such a little thing was actually a big thing in my life. What may seem to be little things are actually big things in the eyes of God. Mordecai was not a king. Mordecai was not in a leadership position. Mordecai didn't slay Goliath or rescue a nation or walk across the Red Sea onto dry ground or have a platform to speak on. He saw a young lady, a cousin, whose father and mother had died, and she was an orphan, and he took her in. What may seem to be a little thing is actually a big thing in God's eyes. When you sponsor a child in Nicaragua, you say, it's just a little thing. It's just $35 a month to sponsor a child in Nicaragua. It's a big thing in the eyes of God because now you've given a child food. You've given a child a chance for education. You've given a child, maybe even more than all those things, hope. Hope. You say, I just work in the nursery. It's just a little thing, right? I'm on the nursery schedule. I work in the nursery. It's just a teeny little thing. No, these are big things in the eyes of God. I just greet people. I just say hello to someone. I just hug somebody in the morning and say welcome. I just say hi to them. It seems like such a little thing. It's not a little thing because you don't know the person's story. You don't know I mean, it's something, right, to be noticed, to be recognized, to be cared for. Like, these are important things in the eyes of God, right? I watched Rob Perkins. You probably don't know him. I watched Rob Perkins come in early this morning and straighten the chairs out. He comes in early on Sunday mornings. He lines the chairs up back on the line so that they're nice and straight. We think, oh, that's just a little thing. No, it's not. That's a huge thing. Because the few weeks that he was gone, the chairs were really crooked because nobody was following up with him. He didn't have anybody to do it besides him. So they're really crooked. And let's just be honest, these are the chairs that people sit in and make decisions about God. It's just a card I wrote to somebody. It's just a hello. It's just believing in a child's future. It's just volunteering at student ministry. It's just, we can say all of these things are just little things, but the truth is, you don't know how this is going to play out in the end. And this is just an opportunity for a cousin to say, here's an orphan child. I believe in her. I'm going to bet on her. I'm going to treat her like she's my own child. We'll see how this kind of plays out in just a moment as we go through it. But don't ever call little things little things. If you're open to God, he can use you right where you are right now. So in Esther chapter 2, verse 15, we see that Mordecai really saw something in Esther. And so in verse 15 it says, when the turn came for Esther, the young woman Mordecai had adopted, the daughter of his uncle Abihail, to go to the king, she asked for nothing other than what Haggai, the king's eunuch who was in charge of the harem, suggested. And Esther won the favor of everyone who saw her. She was taken to King Xerxes in the royal residence of the 10th month, the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. Now the king was attracted to Esther more than to any of the other women, and she won his favor and approved more than any of the and approval more than any other of the virgins. So he set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. So the girl whose chances were really slim because of prejudice, because of a difficult beginning as a child, because she was an orphan, by God's intervention, this orphan became the queen. Only God can pull that off, right? Only God can pull that off. And we think, is this the end of the story? No. Is it happy ever after this? No. There were a lot of twists and turns. Let's continue into the story. Number 2, we learn from Esther that uncertainty is certain. Uncertainty is certain. So while Mordecai would sit outside the palace, he was a very interesting cousin. He really cared about Esther, and so he wanted to be close to her, and so he would stay outside the palace while she was there. While he was outside the palace one day, he hears about a plot against the king, an assassination plot against the king. There's this plan. These two officers are talking back and forth. He overhears it, that they're talking about how they're going to assassinate the king. And so Mordecai tells Esther, Esther tells the king has it investigated, the report was true, and the king has these two officers impaled. All of it was recorded in these books that they would keep, these record books that they would keep over and over and over again. We'll get back to that in just a minute. But every good story has a bad guy, right? Every good story has an antagonist, and the bad guy in this story is a man named Haman. Haman, can you remember that? Haman had the seat of honor. He was prideful. He commanded people to bow down to him. And Mordecai would not bow down to Haman, and it drove him mad. He got angry, and he wanted to kill Mordecai because he would not bow down to him. And that hatred and that bitterness grew to the point where he not only wanted to kill Mordecai, he wanted to kill the entire Jewish race. He wanted to kill all the Jews in all the provinces around. And so he went to the king, and somehow, again, the king had some leadership, I don't know, some weaknesses, we'll say. And somehow he's duped into this idea. He said, Haman stands before him and says, hey, there's this group of people who are different than the rest of us. They don't obey your laws, and I think it would be at your best interest if you killed all of them. And the king says, oh, okay, I'll do that. This is genocide, people. This is an entire Jewish race that no matter, the order went out that no matter how old, no matter how young, man, woman, child, kill them and plunder everything that they have. And it was going to be done on the 13th day of the 12th month, which was a little bit away. So everyone in all the provinces got this order that on the 13th day of the 12th month, they were to kill all of the Jews annihilate all of the Jews in their province. Can we just say uncertainty is certain, right? And Mordecai and all the Jews are just in complete distress. This is a death sentence over them. And Mordecai knows that the queen, who was a Jewish woman undercover, was the answer. And so Mordecai gets word to Esther, and now she's in great distress, and she needs to talk to the king, but that was not an easy thing to do. So it says in Esther chapter 4, verse 11, all the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they put to death unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their lives. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. In other words, if you walk in on the king, you get put to death. This was an uncertain moment for her. Even more, Esther is in a very comfortable position in her life. She has a good future. Things are going really well right now. If she goes in, this is a decision she has to make. Am I going to step outside of the future that I have, knowing that this could not only kill me, but it could take me out? The king just, he just sent Vashti, the last queen, out like it was nothing. So am I going to actually step into this moment? She had a choice to make. It was a difficult decision because it was so uncertain. So she sends word to Mordecai. She's like, if I do this, Mordecai, I could be put to death. And Mordecai's like, there's no guarantee going forward anyway. There's no guarantee. People love to guarantee things, don't they? They love to guarantee things. I wish I could tell my wife, listen, our financial future is secure. I guarantee it. None of you can do that. None of you can do that. We try to. We think that we can guarantee it. In fact, I wish that I could stand in front of every single one of you and say, listen to me, you're going to live to be 90 years old. I can guarantee it. Your kids are going to be okay. I guarantee it. You can't make these kinds of guarantees. In fact, I shared a vision with you all a couple weeks ago about our desire to reach the broken and the next generation. I can't guarantee that any of those things are going to work, but what I can guarantee is that if we do nothing, nothing will change. You can guarantee that. So Esther has no idea what the king's going to do. And she said, and this is the word that comes back. So when Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer. Do not think that because you are in the king's house that you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Don't you just love that? For such a time as this. That Mordecai is saying, look, can I just remind you of this? You have been placed in this position and in this time and in this moment for such a time as this. It's so challenging. Uncertainty is certain, but what are we going to do in the moments of uncertainty? I'm not sure what will happen, but the answer can't be to do nothing, right? It can't be to do nothing. So the third lesson that we learn from Esther is that underdogs don't play it safe. They rise up and take risks. Now, we don't like risks, do we? We like to be comfortable. We like to be safe because comfort is comfortable. And entrepreneurs have made a ton of money on you selling you comfort. You know that, right? Maybe you don't know it. It's true, though. Starbucks isn't about coffee, people. Starbucks is about creating an experience of comfort. We live in a comfort-driven society. We have memory foam for our beds. We have lazy boys in our living rooms. We have hot tubs on our back porch. We have whirlpools in the master bath. We have facials for our face, massages for our bodies, resorts for our stress because we like comfort. We like comfort. We live in a comfort-driven society. And here's the problem with that. If we're not careful, that idea of comfort begins to creep into our faith. And we begin to believe the idea that following Jesus should also be comfortable. That following Jesus should be easy and not difficult. You see, we live in a culture where it's just that way. None of us in this place, we did not walk. Did anybody walk to church today? Did anyone walk over a mile to church today? You know, there are places in the world today where people will walk miles and miles and miles to get to church. And guess what? They're going to get there on time, too. Let's just throw that in there for the fun of it. They're going to get there on time. There are places around the world where underground churches are meeting, where people will face great persecution, even the threat of death, even potentially death, for following Jesus, for opening a Bible together, for meeting together, for praying. And we are blessed. We sit in a church with an AC and padded seats. Nobody walked far today. There was one couple this morning in the early service that walked here, and they live just on the other side of the soccer field, so it really wasn't that far. But we're not sitting in the blazing heat today, you know, scared of the fact that we're reading the Bible together. And the problem is that it's so comfortable for us in this culture that we live in that it creeps into our faith and what it means to follow Jesus. You know, Jesus didn't tell us to pick up our pillow and carry it. Jesus said pick up our cross and carry it. It's difficult. It's a challenge. I think underdogs get this idea because they keep pushing. They don't play it safe. God offers us opportunities all the time to stand up and take risks, to step up and take a risk. God offers them to us all the time, personally and as a church. And I think Mordecai is saying to Esther, don't settle here. Don't take a risk. Don't coast, because you've been chosen for this moment. You've been placed here in this position and for this moment. Don't coast. Don't settle. But she still had a choice. And here's the thing about God. God's going to see his purposes unfold either way. You know that, right? God's going to see his desires of his heart happen either way. The things that God wants to happen are going to happen, and he's either going to use us or not use us, depending on our choice. When he says to us, hey, step out here and take a risk. I mean, people say to me oftentimes at the church, like, why do we keep pushing so hard? Why do we keep moving so quick? Like, why do we keep pushing for the next generation? Why do we keep pushing for the broken? Can't we just settle in? Can't we just coast for a minute? Sure we can. We absolutely can. But you know what's going to happen? God's purposes are going to be accomplished, so he's just going to raise up a different group of people to accomplish his purposes that are willing to do it. Personally, God calls you out to do things, to take risks, and you know what they are. And you say, well, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll pray about it. I'll think about it. I'll get to it later. And you know what God's going to do? His plans are going to unfold. He's going to do it anyway. Are you going to miss out on it? Maybe he'll raise somebody else up to do it because you keep saying, I don't know, maybe one day. I don't know. We'll get to it one day. God has raised you up for this moment. God has placed you in your neighborhood, in your workplace, in your church, in your friend group, on the teams that your kids are on, for a purpose, for a time such as this. What are we going to do with the things that God's called us to do? He's going to accomplish this stuff anyway. Are we going to allow him to use us, or are we just going to coast? So Esther, in verse 15, it says, Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. Isn't that incredible? If I perish, I perish. This is my time. God has called me to do this. I'm in this place, in this position, in this moment right now for this reason. I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and do what God's called me to do. And I want to challenge us as a church and as people to know that God has blessed us. God has blessed you. God has blessed me. God has blessed our church for way more than just our own comfort. For way more than just our own comfort. So she sends word to everyone to pray, and she's going to go talk to the king. Verse 3 of chapter 7 says, Then Queen Esther answered, If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition, and spare my people. This is my request. She steps up. She sees the position she's in, and she allows God to use her. She takes the risk. Number 4, the fourth lesson we learned from Esther is to let God is certain become your peace. To let God is certain become your peace. When things are uncertain, lean on the one, the God who is certain. When she says, God, I trust you, when she says, if I perish, I perish, that is a statement of trust. That is a statement of saying, I believe in this certain God who will not let me down. So the rest of the story goes like this. You really should read it, okay? Have you decided that you're going to read this yet on your own? You really should read this story on your own. So the rest of the story goes like this. Queen Esther approaches the king. He extends the gold scepter to her. God shows his favor to her. She actually, as she goes before the king, he offers her anything she wants, up to half the kingdom, anything that you want. I mean, God just shows his favor, and the king shows his favor. And all she asks, she says, when she's been given this opportunity to have half the kingdom, she says, all I ask is that you spare my life and the life of my people. Meanwhile, Haman, the bad guy, is building a pole where he's going to hang Mordecai, the Jew, who he hated. And so the king realizes in this moment that as Esther's saying these things to him, that he's been duped by this Haman guy. And so he asks this question in verse 5. He said, King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, who is he, where is he, the man who has dared to do such a thing? Esther said, an adversary, an enemy, the vile Haman. I can kind of imagine it. He's right over there, Haman. This was all his idea. Not only that, this really weird thing happened that the king couldn't sleep one night. This is happening all in the middle of this. The king has insomnia one night and can't sleep. So he pulls out the record books and begins to read them. And he reads the fact that there was a day when Mordecai saved his life. That there was this plot to assassinate him. And Mordecai, this man, has saved his life. Haman's not such the good guy anymore. Mordecai is the good guy. And Haman is hung on the same pole that he built for Mordecai. And Esther not only becomes the queen, she is used to spare the lives of all of the Jews. And Mordecai is promoted to second in command, which was Haman's position. Mordecai, second in command, and his adopted orphaned cousin living in the palace as the queen. Come on. It doesn't get any better than that. That's an awesome story. A little act of kindness. Earlier, I said, it's not like Mordecai saved a nation. He just cared for an orphan girl. It's not like he saved a nation, but I was wrong, wasn't I? He did save a nation. It was just this little thing of adopting this family member who had no mom and dad, and it became what maybe he thought was a little thing was actually a thing that saved an entire nation in the end. In verse 3 of Esther chapter 10, it says this. This is how it all finishes. It says, Mordecai, the Jew, was second in rank to King Xerxes, preeminent among the Jews, and held in high esteem by his many fellow Jews because he worked for the good of his people and spoke up for their welfare, for the welfare of all the Jews. What is the end of your story going to look like? Are you working for God's kingdom, or are you working for your own kingdom. Are there any in the room who would say, my future is uncertain? I'm facing uncertain circumstances. Well, if that's you, here's what I think will help you kind of make it practical. Here's what you should do this week, okay? Ask yourself this question: am I facing any uncertain circumstances in marriage, career, finances, health, or faith? Number 2, am I going to play it safe or take a risk? What could a risk be for a couple who is facing uncertain circumstances in their marriage? What could be the risk? Maybe you would do something so risky as registering for Weekend to Remember and saying, hey, we're going to go to Weekend to Remember. We're going to invest in our marriage for the weekend. What is it that God's, maybe it's in faith. Maybe in your faith you're facing uncertain circumstances. Are you going to play it safe or are you going to take a risk? Are you going to coast or are you going to step up and do something? And will you let God who is certain become your peace? The God who is certain become your peace. You know, I think the thing that I just love about the story of Esther more than anything else is that it kind of just appears to be this, what many have called a series of coincidences. Did you pick up on any of them as we were reading through it? A series of coincidences, or what people would say are a series of coincidences. That there was this drunken and boastful king. Was that a coincidence? Or was that God working in the background, accomplishing his purposes? There was a drunken and boastful king. There was a self-respecting queen who said, you know what, I'm not going to be halftime entertainment for anybody. Is that just a coincidence? Or is that God working in the background? There was an orphan child. There was a God-rigged beauty pageant. Again, are these just coincidences? An overheard plot. This plot to assassinate the king that's overheard by Mordecai. Is that just a coincidence that he happened to be standing there that day and heard that happening? Or is this God working in the background and using people for his purposes? A king has insomnia. When was the last time you stayed up at night and were like, I didn't sleep at all last night. I just had a horrible night's sleep. Well, maybe God was trying to tell you something. Maybe God wanted you to say, okay, God, I'm up. What do you want to talk about today? I'm here. I know it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but let's talk. Was it just a coincidence that the king couldn't sleep and that he pulled out the records and began to read about how Mordecai had saved his life? Is this just a coincidence? And on you can go. Or is this God working around all of these situations in their life and using them? And I would say that many of you in the room could say, I know I can look back at my life, and many people would say, look at this, it's just a series of coincidences in your life. No, it's not. I can see God using all of these different things as he pursues me and calls me out and uses me for his purposes. And many of you might be here this morning just maybe for the purpose of surrendering something. You think, oh, I just got up this morning and went to church. Maybe this is the first time you're here. Maybe somebody in your family wrangled you here because you're visiting them this weekend or whatever. You think, I just happen to be here. Or is this God doing something in your life saying, hey, it's time for you to take a risk. It's time for you to step up. It's time for you to surrender. It's time for you to open your hands to that thing that you're saying, no, God, I can't do this. Maybe it's your life. Maybe God has worked out all the details of your life so that you're sitting right here and facing this moment of decision and saying, I need to give my life to Jesus today. This is not an accident. This is not an accident. Would you pray with me? God, we see your hand in so many amazing ways. It's so interesting to me that the book of Esther, that many will argue that you weren't even present, that your name wasn't even spoken, but yet we can see all of these things happening and your hand moving them into their course to do the things that you've called them to do. And so, God, as you've set out the things in our life to bring us to a place of surrender right now, God, would you help us to open our hands to you, whatever it is, to take the risks, to do what you've called us to do, to not to sit on our hands and not to do it, but to stand up and do it. And God, if there's anyone here this morning that the pursuit of their life has brought them to a place now of surrender, that God, that they would say to you in this moment, I'm here, God. I see what you did now. I see what you're doing. And I give myself to you. I surrender. I give up. I'm yours. I want to live for you. And God, I know others in the room are facing uncertain moments. The future is uncertain. But God, I pray that you would help them to see that you are the certain God. And let that be their peace going forward. Knowing that you know all the details. You're playing out all the details. You know everything that's going to happen today, tomorrow, and the weeks and years ahead. You know how this whole thing ends. And we know you win in the end anyway, so we just want to go on the ride with you through it. Use us, God. Help us to stand up when you call us to stand up. And we love you, Jesus. And we worship you now together. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Would you stand with us as we just spend some time here in worship together and just lift your voice to the Lord and just tell him, I'm available, I'm yours, I surrender, I see what you're doing. I put my trust in you, the God of certainty. I'm going to let that be my peace today. So let's worship together for the next few minutes.
I'll raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemy. I'll raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I'll raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I'll raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me.
I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm, louder
Sing a little louder.
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 Oh, sing a little louder.
Sing a little louder.
In the presence of my enemies.
Sing a little louder.
Louder than the unbelief.
Sing a little louder.
My weapon is a melody.
Sing a little louder.
Heaven comes to fight for me.
Sing a little louder.
In the presence of my enemies.
Sing a little louder.
Louder than the unbelief.
Sing a little louder.
My weapon is a melody.
Sing a little louder.
Heaven comes to fight for me.
Sing a little louder.
I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roaring up from the ashes. Hope will arise. Death is defeated. The King is alive. And I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar from the ashes. Hope will arise. Death is defeated. The King is alive.
I'll raise a hallelujah. I'll raise a hallelujah. I'll raise a hallelujah. I'll raise a hallelujah. This is how I find my battle. And this is how I find my battle. And this is how I find my battle. And this is how I find my battle. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. 'Cause this is how I find my battles. 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 It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. 'Cause this is how I find my battles. 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 how we fight our battles. This is how we fight our battles. And this is how we fight our battles. Our fight is with weapons unseen, and your enemies crash to their knees as we rise up in worship. When trials unleash like a flood, the battle belongs to our God as we cry out in worship. The victory is yours. You're riding on the storm. Your name is unfailing. Though kingdoms rise and fall, your throne will stand secure. Your name is unshaken. What no man to break me has been. Now nothing will silence my voice. We'll cry out in worship. And the walls of the prison will shake. The chain-breaking King rise to save as we cry out in worship. Oh, the victory is yours. You're riding on the storm. Your name is unfailing. Though kingdoms rise and fall, your throne stands alone. Your name is unshaken. The victory is yours. You're riding on the storm. Your name is unfailing. Your kingdoms rise and fall. Your throne stands alone. Your name is unshaken. You roar like thunder. Nothing can take God. All powerful, all powerful. We pull down heaven with shouts of praise to God. All powerful, all powerful. Like thunder. Nothing can take God. All powerful, all powerful. We pull down heaven with shouts of praise to God. All powerful, all powerful. The victory is yours. You're riding on the storm. victory's yours. You're riding on the storm, and your name is unfailing. Though kingdoms rise and fall, your throne stands. Your name is unshaken. The victory is yours. You're riding on the storm. Your name is unfailing. Though kingdoms rise and fall, your throne withstands. Your name is unshaken.
So the victory is his, right? The victory is his. Lots of kingdoms will rise and lots of kingdoms will fall, but his will never fall. His kingdom stands tall forever and ever. And just thankful to be a part of that kind of kingdom work every single week. Thank you for being here with us. You need to pay attention to your app because there's lots of stuff going on. I could stand up here for another 10 minutes and tell them to you. I don't really feel like I need to do that because you can read it. So look on your app and see all the things that are going on. Give a gift if you can. Helps us to continue to stay strong. And I mean, baptism was just incredible last weekend, wasn't it? And so your giving, your generous giving helps things like that happen. So continue to give on their app or website, or you can drop something in the boxes as you go out the back today. Thank you for being here. And remember, if you're a guest, check in with guest services. We have a gift for you. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.